everybody, and welcome back to my channel today. Today's video is really exciting because I got to ask about 500 people, 500 POTS patients, what their number one symptom trigger is for their POTS, and I got a bunch of answers, and I'm highlighting in this video the top 10 triggers for POTS patients and things that make their symptoms more severe and things that really get them feeling not so good. And I'm going to address each one of those and talk about ways that we can help ourselves if we have that trigger, maybe ways we can avoid it, or how we can cope if it is unavoidable. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get right to it. Okay, so first let's name the top 10 answers that I received after asking around 500 people what their number one triggers were for POTS, and a lot of them listed more than one thing, and these are the top 10 answers that I received. So number one is heat. A lot of people chose heat as their number one trigger. And the second thing is overdoing it or standing up too long and just doing too much physically or exerting themselves. Number three is anxiety or stress. Feeling stressed out, stressful circumstances was a real trigger for a lot of people. Number four is dehydration or low salt intake. Number five is lack of sleep. I think we can all relate to that. Number six is, okay, so this one kind of involves a lot of things, but it's to do with our eating habits. So eating too much or not eating enough, skipping meals, or not eating the right things. And number seven is that time of the month. A lot of women replied that they are worse during their period. Number eight is temperature changes. So it kind of goes along with heat, but sudden changes in temperature or the seasons changing. So being too hot, too cold, those kinds of things. And number nine is alcohol. A lot of people said that alcohol triggered their POTS symptoms. And number 10 would be caffeine and chocolate. I kind of lumped those together because they seem to come together a lot in the responses that I got. So caffeine and chocolate is another thing that can really set people's POTS off, and I know it does for me. And I had a few honorable mentions here, and that would be, a lot of people said pain and taking showers can bring a lot of symptoms. And I also wanted to mention this one, even though I only saw it once, because I thought it was kind of funny, but not, because I know exactly what they're saying. But all that person said was Walmart. I think we all understand. So now let's get into each individual POTS trigger and talk about ways we can maybe avoid them or get ourselves feeling a little bit better. And that first one that the overwhelming majority chose was heat. So as a POTS sufferer, you know that heat is going to be a real trigger for you. And that's because if you have dysautonomia, your autonomic nervous system is not functioning properly, and you just become overly heated, and your body temperature control and regulation is not working properly. So we're easily overheated, and it's hard for our bodies to cool ourselves down. So there are some practical things that we can do when we are feeling overheated, and I'm going to list a few of those things that maybe I've tried or things that I've heard work well for others, and maybe it's worth giving them a try. One thing I thought of is dressing in layers, light layers. So a lot of times for me, I start off the day really cold, and it takes me a while to warm up, especially in the fall and winter. But I live in a coastal area, and it tends to be a little bit more cool and crisp, so that might not work for someone else who has longer summers and it's typically still hot when it's cold where I live. So if you wake up and you dress in light layers and you're able to strip off those clothes as you get hot versus just wearing, you know, a big baggy sweater and baggy pants or whatever. I don't know why I said baggy, because it doesn't necessarily mean they're warmer. I don't know. We can look into that later. But anyways, dress in layers so that you can strip off items of clothing as appropriate and to cool yourself down. Other people I know even keep a spray bottle nearby so that if they feel themselves getting hot, they can spray themselves literally in the face or all over, wherever, just to cool themselves down. And as the water hits your face or wherever, it evaporates from your skin and giving you a cooler sensation. Other people wear like these cool ice packs on their neck to keep themselves from overheating, especially in those summer months. And yeah, what else? Cooling towels, rags, just anything you can do if you're feeling overheated. I even, because, okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be hot outside for me to get overheated. I just, for some reason, will just become overheated. And in that case, I open both doors. I have one in the front and one in the back, and it allows this airflow to go through the house. And that gets me cool rather quickly. Or I put a fan on or open the windows, things like that, and that helps me to cool down. So just any little thing that you can do practically to keep yourself cooler, then do it, and hopefully you will feel better. So the second thing we're going to talk about is standing. So prolonged standing or overexerting ourselves and doing too much on our feet. That can be a real trigger, and it causes all sorts of symptoms, you know, fatigue, brain fog, fainting, just all sorts of things. And so what can we do? We can avoid prolonged standing. And so for me, if I have, oh wait, no, what am I saying? Blah, blah, blah. See, I choose to be myself during these videos. Hopefully you can accept it. I might edit this out later, but sometimes my brain goes, what was I talking about? And that's one of those moments. But anyways, if you are like me and you do not have a dishwasher, nor do you have the ability to load a dishwasher if you did have a dishwasher and you have to wash them manually, and that's the chore that you are tasked with, then you need to do the dishes. And so what you can do, instead of saying, okay, I have all these dishes to do, let's just wipe them out right here, just do a few dishes and sit down. Do a few dishes and rest, and keep doing that until they're done. And even if you can't do them all in a day, that's fine. And if you don't have help from someone else, like for me, my mother-in-law helps me out so much with doing the dishes a lot of the time when she's here. So I feel really blessed with that. But sometimes I do take it on myself. And when I do, I try to pace myself and not overdo it, because we can get in our heads and we have all this guilt saying, I need to keep up with these chores. And instead of doing that and overdoing it and regretting it later, just kind of take it a few dishes at a time if you can. And same goes with other household chores. I am guilty of pushing myself too hard and kind of getting in the mindset of the way I used to be before I got sick, and just kind of, if I wake up feeling okay, I'll be like, oh sweet, I can do this, that, and the other. But really, it's really not, what's the word? It's not practical, and it's not reasonable to think that you can do all the things that you used to, and that's okay. We can accept that, but then do what we can in increments. And that goes a long way in preventing, you know, all those symptoms that we get from standing too long or doing too much. So the third most popular trigger that people listed was stress. Stress can be so triggering for POTS and just make your symptoms so much worse. I felt like this really rang true for me. I can totally relate. It's night and day how I handle stress from before I got POTS and to now. Before, I could handle stress really well, and I tried not to let it affect me and kind of just, you know, brushed it off if it was something that I couldn't control. Now, even the littlest things stress me out, and I find myself getting worked up, and that really leads to a lot of POTS flare-ups. So there's things that we can do to try and help our stress levels. Everyone is different, and everyone's stress level in life is different. So for a lot of people, every day is filled with so much unimaginable stress, and for others, it's little things like the trash bin filling up too fast or forgetting to pay a bill. These are all stressors, and they affect us in different ways, but one person's stress might affect them one way and another person's stress affect them another way. It doesn't mean one person's stress is more important than the other, but the fact is we all have stress, and there's all things that we can all do to help ourselves, you know, just kind of relax and feel better. A few things that I thought of were just taking some personal time if you're able, some quiet time in a separate room from everybody else. Lay down, maybe in silence, maybe listen to some soothing music or music that makes you happy. Maybe try journaling if you love to write. Write down things that you're grateful for. In particular, I find gratitude is a really positive way to stay positive. And you could also try reading. I know sometimes for POTS it's hard to focus, but if you're able to do that, it can kind of be an escape and take you away from your current stress levels. And even just watching TV or like a funny, lighthearted show can be helpful in distracting you and helping you just kind of reset that stress and just get it out of your mind for a while. So there's things we can do. Of course, we can't completely remove all stress, as that's not reasonable, but just try to keep things in perspective and keep each thing in its place. Like, don't borrow tomorrow's troubles today. Just kind of focus on what you're handling in that moment and for that day, instead of worrying about what tomorrow is going to bring. I find that really helpful. The top four thing that people listed as something that makes their POTS worse is dehydration or lack of proper salt intake. And I totally agree. Dehydration is absolutely horrible for POTS, and we need to avoid it at all costs. So there are things that we need to do. And the obvious one is drink water. Drink water. And some practical ways you can implement this in your life is what I do. For me, that works, and I find kind of gets me rolling for the day, is I get my water bottle, or I try to, if I have the energy. I try to get my water bottle ready the night before, and I fill it up with cold water. I put a liquid IV packet in there and a big ice cube ball thing that I have that keeps it cold through the night. And if I wake up in the night, I can take a drink of it, but I prefer to wait till morning so that sugar is not sitting on your teeth. But I have it right there next to my bedside, so when I wake up, I can start chugging that 32-ounce water bottle. And I'm surprised at how fast I can chug things now. Before, I'd never chugged water or anything. I was always a sipper. Now I find it a lot easier to drink water, and my body just needs it. So I start off the day drinking that, and then I think if you just have it ready to go already, you're more likely to keep refilling it throughout the day and not let yourself get dehydrated. And also, if you don't have liquid IV, maybe some other electrolyte supplements would be good to try. I also use Salt Stick Vitacium, these salt capsules by Salt Stick. They're Amazium Vitacium. That's where I got the Amazium. They are amazing, and they also have potassium in there as well. So you can take those with your water, add salt to your foods. Some people use sea salt. They say that table salt bothers their stomachs more, but whatever you have to do to just stay hydrated and keep your salt levels up so that your blood volume is kosher or whatever, high up, and keep your circulation going. Whatever you can do, the better. Just do not skip out on water. Don't skip it. And the fifth thing that was most popular that people listed as something that worsens their POTS or makes them feel a lot more symptomatic is lack of sleep. And this is probably in my top 2 or 3 that affects my POTS the worst. Hang on a second. I think the heater just turned on and it's going to be super loud in the background. Okay, so back to lack of sleep. This really bothers me and affects me, and sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes we can't control our sleep, but there are things we can do to help our sleep hygiene, and all we can do is try. So I have a few suggestions here that I took note of that hopefully can help you. I just said, get your body ready for sleep. You can't be expected to be so stimulated by TV and by the goings on around your house and then go lay down and expect to fall asleep. Your body needs time to unwind and prepare itself. So try laying down, going to bed an hour early, and just start the process. Be in a lightly lit room, don't watch TV, try reading, journaling, other things that I suggested earlier that help with stress. Just kind of unwind and get your body ready for sleep, and avoid that blue light if you can. And then try keeping your room a nice temperature. So for me, I cannot sleep if it's too hot in my room, and I can't sleep if it's too cold. I know that research suggests that you should keep your room cooler, on the cool side, but if that doesn't work for you because of your poor circulation, just try to keep it not too hot, and you'll find that you're going to be able to sleep better and stay asleep for longer. At least that's what science says, and it seems to help me. So just keep your room at a nice temperature, and maybe that will help you get a better night's sleep. I know some people swear by melatonin, using that off and on to help regulate their sleep pattern. I haven't tried that in a long time. They actually make it for children now, these little gummies, and my children are trying that. And it's actually really been helpful because one of my children has a really hard time getting to sleep. So that could be something else that you try. But yeah, just try to, I think the other thing of eliminating some of the stress or trying to calm down throughout the day is going to help your sleep as well. And number 6 has to do with our eating habits, like I mentioned before. So not eating the right things, skipping meals, or eating too much, not eating enough. We all know as dysautonomia patients that our stomachs do not like us. Usually, most people. I haven't really encountered anyone with POTS that has a great digestive tract. So because our autonomic nervous system is out of whack and not working optimally, it's hard for our bodies to digest foods. So if we are putting in our bodies the wrong foods, like overly processed, high carb, high sugar foods, we're just kind of putting fuel to that fire, and our bodies are not going to be able to digest it that well and just cause more symptoms, like our stomachs will swell up, we have brain fog because all that blood is trying to get to the stomach, but our circulation is poor and it's just a disaster. So the more clean we can eat, the better. Plant-based as much as possible is what I've heard suggested the most. And then of course, hydrate as much as possible, and avoid those overly processed foods. They're really not good for us. They're not good for anybody, but especially POTS patients, because like I said, our stomachs don't really want to work right. So anything we can do to give it a boost, the better. And yeah, just try not skipping meals. It's really hard because sometimes we don't feel like eating, but if we can just eat a little something and something with protein to give us more energy. I found like getting even plant-based protein bars that aren't too high in sugar, if I don't feel like eating a whole meal, that helps me feel more sustained. And yeah, it's just a lot better than completely skipping eating. And the other thing I wanted to mention regarding food is maybe you have a food intolerance that you haven't identified. So the two main ones for food intolerances are, of course, gluten and dairy. So maybe try cutting out one of those at a time for a period of weeks and seeing if that makes a difference. And for a lot of people, it makes a huge difference if they just cut out dairy or they cut out gluten, or maybe even both. So it's definitely worth giving a try, as hard as it can be, to see if it improves your symptoms. And our number 7 thing comes from all the women out there, and they said that hormonal imbalances or the time of the month or our period makes us a lot more symptomatic. And I can attest to that, especially a few days before. You just feel absolutely awful in pretty much every way, emotionally, physically, mentally. And it's for a lot of different reasons. When we're losing blood, obviously we already have low blood volume, most of us, and so we're losing blood that we can't really afford to lose. Our hormones are going crazy. I read a study that was talking about the hormone, I can't remember which one it is, that drops off right before our period, and it actually, that exact one is also responsible for salt retention. So because it drops off, our bodies during this time are not able to retain salt like it should, even more so than usual. And so it's so important during this time to increase your salt and your fluid intake to keep your blood volume level up and your salt level good, so that your circulation can improve and thus improve all those other symptoms. Now, the other effects that periods bring are emotional. And so for me, I feel like a complete wreck a few days before my period. I am so hyper emotional, crying at everything, worse than normal. And, you know, just like this gloomy cloud over me and like this depressed feeling. And, you know, a lot of times there's not much that we can do other than just cry, and that's okay. So I just kind of let it out, and I talk to someone I care about that I can trust if I have things I want to vent about. And a lot of times you don't even know why you're crying, but it's okay. Just kind of get those emotions out. And I think that that's really healthy, and just take it day by day until it's over, until the next month. But yeah, some things we just got to live with in life, and hopefully you can identify some things that'll help you get through it a little bit more smoothly. Okay, so the 8th thing on our list is temperature changes, or being too hot, too cold. A lot of times because of the seasonal changes. Obviously, we cannot control the seasons and how they change and how it affects the weather and the temperature, but it kind of goes along with point number one, when we're getting overheated. Dress in layers, take practical steps to not become too hot or too cold, and if you have to go outside in the summer months, dress cool, take water with you because that's going to cool you down. Just do anything you can to maintain your temperature as much as you possibly can. Number 9 on the list of complaints that people gave me for things making their POTS worse is alcohol. So it's definitely something you should consider maybe avoiding altogether if you have POTS. It's really not a good thing. It dehydrates our bodies at a much faster rate than normal, and it also dilates our blood vessels, causing, hypotension or low blood pressure, and that's going to make us feel much worse. Now, I've heard people say, well, in the moment, alcohol actually makes me feel a lot better and helps my heart rate and all these things, and that can be true, but it's the following hours and days that really makes us feel like, okay, it's not worth it. Now for me, as soon as I got POTS last year, I just didn't have anything to drink, and I haven't had anything, so I don't really know how it affects my POTS. I maybe had like half a glass of wine once, and then I was like too scared to have anything else because I didn't want to feel worse. But that's just a choice I made, and it's going to be different for everybody. I'm not sitting here saying you must stop drinking if you have POTS, but just kind of figure out what works for you and what is best for your personal health and your circumstances. The last thing on our list is caffeine or chocolate. A lot of you guys said that these things triggers your POTS and makes you feel much worse. For me, I know that chocolate is definitely one of those things that bothers my POTS. I found that I can have a little bit of chocolate, but if I go over the top with it or have too much, then my heart starts racing a lot more, and it doesn't take but a few minutes for that to happen. So I really have to pace myself, and it's hard because I love chocolate. I haven't found I have to cut it out completely, and I hope that that's never the case, but I do have to kind of watch it. For me, I don't drink caffeine, and I didn't drink caffeine before I had POTS because it always kind of bothered my heart and just made me feel sick all over, and just not a good thing. So I don't really have to contend with coming off the caffeine situation, but I know for a lot of people that's a struggle because it's something that they really always relied on for energy and things. But just kind of find what works for you. If you can have a cup or two, great. But if you find that it's making you too sick, definitely try and cut it out because it's definitely not worth it. Okay, so I think that's it. This was really awesome. I wanted to just kind of do this experiment to see how people are relating to each other, what are the different triggers, because sometimes people have a hard time identifying their triggers. So if this video can help you identify maybe something that's been triggering your POTS or making it worse, then I will have succeeded. I hope it's helpful for you guys. I hope it's enlightening, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So let me know down below if you did like this video. Let me know how you're doing, and I hope you're staying well and staying safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.